Hi, I'm LaRovere, and welcome to the Don't Suck at Video podcast. My guest today is Christina Flan. Christina is passionate about video and has over a decade of experience in media. Her and her team provide photography and video for businesses as well as the same services for couples on their wedding day. Today we're going to dive into best practices in providing video for weddings. So if you're interested in getting into this side of the business, you'll want to stick around to get some awesome tips from someone with tons of wedding experience. So my first question for you, Christina, is what is one of your favorite movies? Like one of your top movies of all time?
It's from a long time ago, but it's called The Long, Long Trailer. And it is a Lucille Ball, Desi Arnaz movie.
Okay.
I Love Lucy and The Long, Long Trailer are my favorite movie and television show. And
Nice.
they're the reason I got into video. So
Classic. That's awesome. So you've been doing video and photography for quite a while now. What do you like in particular about doing weddings? Or what do you love about doing weddings?
yeah, the thing I really like is that it's such a happy occasion. So the atmosphere is just exciting to be there. I love the live events and being able to just capture all the emotions, making sure you're, getting people's special day. It's really an exciting and unique time. So it's nice to be there and be able to capture that for people. Yeah.
I've only done a handful of weddings. It's not my area of expertise, but I totally understand. Like it is a joyous occasion, so it's cool to kind of be a part of that in some way.
Yeah,
and
definitely
capture that for them.
Yeah.
What would you say for you, or for anyone who hasn't really done weddings? Like, what's something that's challenging about doing weddings?
The thing that's challenging is that you have to be everywhere at once, especially if you're just one videographer or one photographer. So you really have to be able to anticipate what's coming up. Be able to time things so that you're in the right place at the right time, and just, making sure that you are aware of exactly what's going on at all times.
Right. So it sounds like kind of knowing the schedule and kind of knowing what the timeline of the day is going to be like before you go into it, and just being aware is pretty important.
And being willing to adapt to any changes too.
Right. Everyone's events are a little bit different, but would you say it tends to be like pretty similar, or you probably ask them for like a schedule, or what do you do?
So what I ask the couples for ahead of time is what I call the wedding information sheet. So it basically gives me a rundown of everything that's supposed to take place, the timing of everything. Now, once you get on site, things can change, and usually do, to be honest with you. So once again, you just need to be able to adapt to those changes, making sure you're communicating with the rest of the wedding team, like the DJ, the photographer, if there is a second one, and just making sure that you, again, are aware of everything that's going on.
Nice. So you got to be flexible. Be able to move, with the punches and adapt. So do you often have to deal with, or maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but sometimes people like to try and DIY stuff themselves, or they're like interested in doing it themselves, whether it's like recording their wedding or whatever. Is that something that you run into frequently, or?
Not if I'm out at a wedding because they've already hired me. But ahead of time,
like
I will see.
You're hearing from people or talking to people.
Sometimes. And what I would tell people is that the last thing you want to be worried about on your wedding day is how your video is being recorded. You don't want to have to be splitting your focus and everything like that. So I would really encourage people to hire a separate professional videographer or photographer to make sure that they're able to focus on what's important, which is their big day.
Right. And there's no redos as well. So it has to be right the first time.
Yes.
So that having someone who's a professional and that reliability, and you know that you can count on them. You don't have to worry, like everything will be taken care of. I'm sure that's a big benefit.
And the other thing that's important too is audio. Especially if you're just recording on your phone or something similar like that, you're not going to be getting good audio, and you may miss certain things, especially important things like your vows or toasts. So again, a professional.
Right. Not everybody, like the vows, I've seen sometimes they'll like have a microphone, but a lot of the time they don't have a microphone. So it's not like you're going to be able to hear them at the back necessarily or anything like that. Yeah.
Yep.
And you might miss some cute little moments or whatever because you can't hear it.
Yep.
If you don't get audio. Yeah. What are a couple things if you're looking to just do videography in general, but especially wedding, like what are a couple things someone can do to be successful in their business? Like, whether that's like relationships with customers or, communication or whatever.
There's a lot of important things. Number one, you need to understand your craft. You do not want to be going out to a wedding when you have no idea what you're doing, because like we said earlier, it's a once in a lifetime event. You cannot have any redos and things like that. So you really need to understand your camera settings, what equipment are you using? You need to be familiar with it. And then and not be trying to fumble around and figure stuff out when you're there. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Which I've been there in certain situations, and it is extremely stressful as well. Like as a videographer, like having to try and figure out what you're doing with something like a new camera or anything like that is so stressful. Yeah, I always just try and test stuff out beforehand if it's new. So if you can't, or if you shouldn't be trying to figure things out once you're there, like what can someone do to get prepared to the point where they're ready to be, at a wedding providing those services? There are different things you can do. Some of the popular things I've seen done are to watch YouTube videos. There are actually people that film themselves going out and filming a wedding or photographing a wedding, and they will take you step by step exactly what they're doing throughout the day. I didn't know about that. The other thing I've seen a lot of people do is go out and either assist other professionals who are already doing it or second shooting. That's what I thought, is maybe get on with as an assistant with someone. Yeah. So that you're not totally on the spot. I mean, you definitely want to do a good job, but you're not like the primary person who's in charge. So right. It's not like the whole thing rides on you. You just Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's probably a really good way to get your foot in the door. So my next question was, what would you say is like the number one way that for wedding videography and photography, you get your new business? There are different avenues. For me personally, it's actually in Facebook groups. So in Arizona or wherever you're located, there's going to be local Facebook groups, and people will come on and say, hey, I'm looking for a videographer or a photographer, and you can respond to them with your website and whatever information you have. So for me personally, that's really where I would say 90% of my business comes from. There's also wedding expos you can go to. Word of mouth is key. Right. And just building relationships with other vendors who will recommend you. Okay, so other vendors that work on weddings, all like DJs. Yes. And anybody can be a good referral. DJs, officiants, wedding planners, venues. Anybody who works in the industry can recommend you. So you want to make sure that you're building those relationships. Would you say those people you would be in contact in a somewhat regular basis to like keep the communication fresh, or like how do you deal with that? Like you're checking in with them somewhat regularly, and you'll see them also out at weddings. So you're reconnecting or at other vendor events, and that's going to be kind of cool. Just when you see the same people working on the wedding. Yeah. So like in the Facebook groups, like I mentioned, people will recommend you. So, these people you've been developing relationships with, will recommend you, and you can do the opposite in return. So yeah, it is kind of cultivating that relationship and just maintaining it. Kind
of like referral partnerships, sort of. I mean, not so formal, but in an informal way.
Yeah.
I think that applies pretty well to other areas of video and photo too. It's like, if someone is not doing weddings, but whatever you're doing, you find other people who work with the same kind of customers that you want to work with,
right?
And you just connect with them, like a website designer. And sometimes their clients are probably going to need or ask, "Hey, do you know anyone who does video? Because we want to put some video on the website," stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think I've found that connecting with them in person really helps. Like, you can reach out to people that you haven't spoken to before, but it seems like there's that person to person, like they want to see you and talk to you and kind of know you a little bit as a person, because then they get a sense of who you are, even if it's brief. They're like, oh, this is a nice person. They seem like they'd be nice to work with, versus like just being an anonymous words in an email or something.
Yeah. And it's really helpful. It's really helpful if they've actually worked a wedding with you, because then they can speak to, hey, I worked with this person and this is what I observed, or something like that. So
like they were reliable. They showed up on time. They were courteous. They, all those things. So in your experience working with couples for their weddings, what would you say is like one of the most important things that they look for in someone who's doing photo and video for them? Like, what's the most important thing to them, I guess?
Besides someone being able to, like I said, manage their equipment and things like that, so it's not going wrong on the day. I think what's important to them the most is just capturing their day in an authentic manner. So they want to be able to look at this video or the photos years from now and remember, hey, I remember that happening. Hey, that's us. We are able to look back at this with fond memories. And so I think that's the most important thing that I hear from people, is that they don't necessarily need to be movie stars. They just want to be themselves and capture their day.
Okay. So they don't necessarily care about making it some sort of elaborate cinematic thing. They just want, we just want it to be like reliving the experience again.
That's what I hear from people who hire me. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Because there's definitely a side of things that's like more of a cinematic or whatever. Yes. But
there are really two types of wedding videography or photography. One is cinematic, and the other is more documentary. I personally focus more on the documentary side. However, I do a little bit of cinematic with the highlight videos too, but generally I try to focus on the realism of the day, and that's what I hear my couples appreciate.
That's cool. So after that, what would you say is like another really important thing that they're looking for in someone, or something that they really appreciate? Obviously, assuming you're competent and you're doing the style that they want, but I guess another way to ask it would be, what's something that they would really not like if you didn't do it?
For me, communication is key. They really want to know that they've hired someone who will show up the day of, who will respond to their questions or concerns. So being able to, in a timely manner. Yes, in a timely manner. And on the follow-up, too, after the wedding, if they reach out and say, hey, when are we getting our video or our photos, you need to be able to respond quickly so that they have confidence in you and are up to speed at all times.
Yeah. What would you say is a reasonable or expected response time when you're in communication?
For me, I try to keep it within 24 hours. I'd say anywhere from 24 to 48 hours is acceptable. Yeah.
People start to wonder, Did they?
I never want people to wonder, so
Yeah.
I always try to respond.
I found that tends to be important as well. Like people appreciate that 24 to 48 hours. That again, not in weddings, but just in general, that seems to be a good number. Would you say, like, if there's any issues that you could get ahead of, like anticipate and reach out to them ahead of time about it, or, you know what I mean? Instead of waiting for them to come to you with the questions, is that something you deal with?
Yeah, you could, especially, I think I mentioned earlier, I always get a wedding information sheet from them, which, lists things that are happening, what they want. So if there's something in there that I have a concern about or don't think is doable, I'll bring that up to them ahead of time. Usually phone call is the best so that you can explain it to them. And
versus an email or a text.
Yeah. I mean, you can do it on an email, but if it's a really complicated situation, usually phone call is best. Yeah.
It seems like the same, if you're trying to, like, if it's going to be a back and forth, then there's, the more you're doing it on email or text, the more opportunities for a misunderstanding or, I almost feel like the more you don't talk to someone on the phone, if you're communicating with them a lot over email or whatever, it starts to kind of like, you start to kind of disconnect. Like it can become not as friendly. I don't know if you've experienced that. It's a weird thing, but.
Yeah, it is weird. And one thing you might, people might want before they hire you is to talk to you either in person, on the phone, on Zoom, something like that, to make sure, one, you're a real person, but two, that they feel like they can connect with you and things like that. So, yeah,
definitely. Okay. So I think we sort of might have answered this, but I'll just ask it anyway. So if someone wanted to get started in wedding videography, what would you recommend they do?
I would recommend go on YouTube. Like I said, there's a lot of videos. One, people going through an actual wedding day and showing you what they're doing. You can also watch tutorials on your specific camera and your equipment. You can read blogs or whatnot from other videographers and photographers who are already doing it. Get into these Facebook groups and start networking with people because they can be a source of second shooting and getting you on an actual wedding day so that you can gain that confidence when you're the lead. Nice. Okay.
Like as far as the technical side of things, the hands-on skills and stuff, where would you say, well, and specifically about video, what would you say are some of the important things for them to master or focus on learning and improving their skills in? Like, I know that's really broad. There's a lot, but.
Well, you want to know your specific style. So that's experimenting with, things like frame rates, shutter speed, things like that. You need to make sure that you are able to focus, because if something's out of focus, you cannot really correct it.
That's definitely important. Yeah.
Yeah. Stability. You don't want necessarily the camera to be, all over the place all of the time, especially, at a wedding. So really just knowing the basics is really important.
Okay. So like a strong understanding of the basics, like your aperture, your shutter speed, ISO, and focus, and that, like, really knowing your specific camera that you have. And that way, if something happens, like, you know how to change things on the fly. You don't have to try and think about it too hard. Yep. Like when I did my first couple weddings that I ever worked on, I felt like all the shots needed to be moving. Like I had very little equipment, so I kind of felt like I couldn't just stick the camera on a tripod. I'm talking outside of the ceremony itself. Of course, I had it on a tripod, but like for B-roll, how do you feel about that? Like, do you think if someone has limited equipment, what's more important, I guess?
You mean stability or?
Yeah, like stability or how do you feel about handheld stuff? Or
I don't personally like a lot of handheld stuff, but I can see if that's your style, that could be a good thing. Again, I would discourage it from being the entire film or the entire wedding video, but I could definitely see a use for it in things like the couple's formal photos. When you're out just with the couple and they're just taking couples photos, you could do some different kinds of stylistic choices like that. So you could definitely get by with just a tripod and going handheld at times.
Okay. Yeah, I guess when I started too, gimbals didn't exist. So there's also that. Now you can get a gimbal for like a couple $100 and you had to use a glide cam or whatever when I started, and we tried that, and it's really hard actually. So they're not easy to use.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think would be helpful to share for someone who is interested in doing weddings? Yeah,
watch other people's videos and just find your own style. See what you like, what you don't like. When I first got started in weddings, it was actually editing weddings for other companies. So I was able to see what other people shot, what I wanted to do, what I didn't want to do, and things like that. So it's important, again, just to see what you like, what you don't like, how, identify what's important to you that you think other people and couples would like. So, and another thing I would say is make sure you're having fun. This is an exciting day for people. You want to make sure that you are personally having fun. Yes, because if you're having fun, that's going to show to your couples too, and the people around them. So
coming in with a good attitude and being positive and like a can-do attitude, probably when stuff doesn't go right.
Yes.
I hear that. That's definitely something I've had to work on personally. It's just like telling myself, have a positive attitude. Just like, don't be sour. Go in, just be the person that's going to make stuff happen. Oh, something bad happened. No problem. We'll figure it out. But it's not always easy. Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing some tips. I appreciate your time. I think everyone will walk away with some great information, especially if they're looking to get started. And so you can find Christina online at ChristinaFlaan.com. That's FLAAEN. And thank you, everyone, listening, taking the time out of your day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for the podcast and other content, or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to get notified when the next episode comes out, which as of right now is every Friday morning. So until next time.